CPAC 2017 kicked off today outside Washington with a revived Republican Party that now controls both houses of Congress and the White House. President Trump will address the annual Conference of Conservatives tomorrow. His Vice President, Mike Pence, will fire up the crowd tonight. Earlier, some of the president's top aides took the stage, including Kellyanne Conway, Betsy DeVos, Reince Priebus, and Steve Bannon. It's very rare to hear from Mr. Bannon, but we heard a lot from him today. Here was the president's chief strategist tearing into the media for their coverage of President Trump.
Look at, the opposition party and how they portrayed the campaign, how they portrayed the transition, and now they're portraying the administration. It's always wrong. If you remember, the campaign was the most chaotic, by the media's description, most chaotic, most disorganized, most unprofessional, had no earthly idea what they were doing, and then you saw them all crying and weeping that night. They were dead wrong on the chaos of the campaign, and just like they were dead wrong in the chaos of the transition, they are absolutely dead wrong about what's going on today. They're corporatist, globalist media that are adamantly opposed to an economic nationalist agenda like Donald Trump has. He's going to continue to press his agenda. And as economic conditions get better, as more jobs get better, they're going to continue to fight. If you think they're going to give you your country back without a fight, you are sadly mistaken.
And let's listen to just one more soundbite from Mr. Bannon, because I think it leads us into a nice discussion about what he wants them to be held accountable for.
If you want to see the Trump agenda, we have very wide and sometimes divergent opinions, but I think the center core of what we believe, that we're a nation with an economy, not an economy just in some global marketplace with open borders, but we are a nation with a culture and a reason for being. And I think that's what unites us. We're at the top of the first inning of this, and it's going to take just as much fight, just as much focus, and just as much determination. Hold us accountable to what we promised. Hold us accountable for delivering on what we promised.
Greg, CPAC has often been the place in the last several years where Ron Paul, from a libertarian perspective, could rile up the crowd. And there are changes. You started to see them last year during the primary. And this year you have President Trump, who's there. Everyone seems to be all in.
It's weird. I don't feel like you need CPAC this year. It's like having a birthday cake after Christmas. You know what I mean? Because remember how CPAC was always... You're always there to complain about what happened. Like the fact that it's Obama again. It's Obama, and like we lost again. We lost again. Now it's like you got divorced and you remarried and everything's great. So you don't have to talk about Obama. What do you talk about now? I enjoyed them up there. It was like the political version with Reince and Bannon. It was like a political version of a buddy cop movie. It was like Reince was Billy Rosewood for Beverly Hills Cop, and Bannon was Axel Foley. Or maybe Reince was Danny Glover, and Bannon was Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. Either way, like one was a good cop, one was a bad cop. Like Reince was the guy that smooths things over, and Bannon tells you how it is. Yeah. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Or Crockett and Tubbs.
Crockett and Tubbs.
That's where I was going. That's what I was thinking there.
That was nice.
Wait, which one's Crockett?
I think Crockett was getting in a little bit of trouble, right? So we'll give him Bannon now. We'll let Tubbs be Reince Priebus. A couple of very, very interesting things came out of that. Number one, Bannon came straight out right in the very beginning and said, we will be grinding it through the agenda. So anyone who thought it wasn't going to be this way, look, you got a heads up. And then he said something important. He said, first of all, he clarified that Donald Trump is the one who's calling all the shots on this. They're putting together the strategy, but it's Donald Trump making the calls. But he said, you know what our strategy was going to be. You knew what our agenda was going to be. All you had to do is go to the rallies, to the speeches during the campaign, and all Donald Trump right now is doing is methodically grinding out the promises that he made on the campaign trail, and that's why you see so much mirror of what he was talking about happening now, and you've heard it 100 times. Well, he said he was going to do it, and he's doing it. There shouldn't be any surprise. And the second thing, he outlined, Bannon, 3 priorities, 3 pillars of the strategy going forward. The economic nationalism that he talked about right there, national sovereignty, and this one, deconstruction of an administrative state. And I think that is so, so important, because that's what Donald Trump wanted. Remember the outsider? Well, the insiders of the administrative state, and what they are doing, methodically deconstructing the administrative state, and I think he was speaking to every one of his voters right there, and they liked it.
And part of that, I think, is the rolling back of the regulations, and that the market is actually responding to that, Kimberly. So today, today and tomorrow, they have this platform where they get to go out and say, okay, we've been there a month. you're going to see a lot of activity in March. They have a full agenda. And if you bear with me, I'm going to play this soundbite that I meant to play. This is where he talks about what they should be held accountable for.
If you want to see the Trump agenda, it's very simple. It was all in the speeches. He went around to these rallies, but those speeches had tremendous amount of content. All he's doing right now is he's laid out an agenda with those speeches, with the promises he made, and our job every day is just to execute on that, is to simply get a path to how those get executed. And he's maniacally focused on that. You've seen the executive orders, what the Supreme Court, the way he's gone through the Supreme Court, and by the way, the other 102 judges that we're eventually going to pick. It's just a methodical, and that's what the mainstream media won't report.
So that's what he's trying to say, is that the media has been focusing on some process and on some of the fights, but that behind the scenes, this is why I think the Democrats are making a mistake and not playing ball, that the policy is being rolled out and they're not at the table to discuss it.
Yeah, and I thought that he was a very persuasive advocate in terms of the message of the president, very consistent with what they were campaigning on this whole time and what drove them into the Oval Office and swept past Hillary Clinton. I love the fact that he said hold us accountable, and the fact that he's saying, listen, you got to play sort of like you're in last place every day. Just because we won, do not get complacent. They are not going to let you take back your country. So to me, that was a call to arms, which is necessary to motivate, to say rise up to support the leadership that you put in, because now we're just getting started. This is where the hard work begins, and especially focusing on the fact that the president is going to be methodical in terms of going through and implementing all of the things that he promised during the campaign, which I think is incredibly important, because think about it, you have to have an eye towards re-election even already, and you have to honor the promises, the people who were so inspired and came out in record numbers to support him. And it sounds like he's very focused, like eyes on the prize, while the media is busy trying to demonize him and the whole cabinet.
Juan, do the Democratic Party pay a lot of attention to CPAC?
Not historically. I mean,
But
historically, it's a gathering of people who are on the conservative side, and it's sort of a rally or a boot camp, especially for young people, and all the radio talk show hosts show up, so it's a little bit of a trade show. And so it's a celebration of people who are defining conservative. But, I mean, to me, one of the ironies of this is that conservatives used to stand for things like free trade, right? So conservatives used to be pro-immigration, remember, and for immigration reform, and against big government and big government spending. But you can't have that discussion at CPAC this year, off the books, because this is the Trump CPAC. I think somebody said it should be TPAC.
It was Kellyanne Conway.
Yeah, Kellyanne said, you know, this should be Trump PAC. That's all it is.
TPAC.
I have all of TPAC's work. It's amazing.
Tupac.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I thought you were Ice-T. That's what, yeah, you're Ice Trump. But anyway, I think what you got here is a situation today of a celebration. So you get, not only do you get Bannon sitting next to Reince Priebus and pretending that everything is just kumbaya, when we know that it's not kumbaya inside there, but then you have the sense that he's going after the press. Bannon particularly picking up on what is now
Opposition
sort of a
party.
yeah, just a worn theme of going after the press. I think they need to stand for something. And to me, what was interesting was you do not see them at CPAC embracing the alt-right, which is, I think, the biggest news to come out of this session, that people like, you know,
well, in fact, Dan
Yiannopoulos.
Schneider, I think maybe I have his title wrong, but executive director of the American Conservative Union, and Matt Schlapp is the chairman.
Right.
In his speech this morning, it was very clear that he wanted to set a marker that said the alt-right has no place here.
That's the news to me.
Well, they threw the guy out, right?
Spencer.
Spencer, yeah, he got thrown out right away. Juan, can I just may I respond?
Yeah.
The conservatives are still pro-immigration, but legal immigration. Let's clarify that. And also, you say there's clearly no inside the White House, no kumbaya between these two guys. They looked great to me. They both said there was. They respected. You could see they respected each other.
That's
you say we all know that. How do we know that? That there's no. You said we all know there's no kumbaya going on behind the closed doors.
Because I think they have major policy and approaches to policy differences. And on the business about immigration, the Wall Street Journal this morning, their editorial very clear, and I think they're a big voice for, I don't know what you would consider them, but to me they're very conservative. And what they're saying is, wow, this is an invitation to big government, overkill, to go after people who are doing petty crimes, and it's unnecessary, and all conservatives should be concerned that government is being expanded and money is being spent that they don't have in order to do this.
But nothing heals a rift better than winning. So there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in the room that, including Reince, who thought Trump was going to lose, but he won. Nothing heals a rift better than winning. Could you imagine CPAC if Trump had lost? What it would have been an orgy of murderous cannibalism. It would have been the Red Wedding in Ralph Lauren. You know, it would have been Game of Thrones and khakis.
Well, I remember in 2013, it was that.
Yeah.
Remember when Obama won the second term?
Yeah.
That was all about the autopsy and the second. And by the way, who did the autopsy? Reince Priebus.
Yes.
And it was
Rinse
about.
and repeat, as you say.
It was about minority outreach. It was about being better understanding with minorities, especially immigrants, in a Hispanic community, in order to build the Republican brand.
But I think what Kimberly was saying is smart in terms of, like, this is a place where you can actually talk to the grassroots. These are the people that will show up and that they'll be able to be supportive, and this sets up nicely for President Trump's first joint session of Congress speech, which is going to take place on Tuesday.
Oh, boy.
So we will have primetime coverage.
Will we?
And everyone will want to watch it.
I don't think we're going to cover it at all. I don't think so.
Is this now the new Republican Party, though? I mean, that's the big question. And you're right. It's all the CPAC has always been a quasi-conservative / libertarian party, right?
Well, I mean, it is interesting to me. I mean, this is where Ron Paul he was shown for years. Like this was his place.
And ran.
Well, he always won the straw poll, but it was because his followers were so hardcore and young.
And I think that they're energized, right? So, like as you say, winning makes everyone look better.
So has that faction of the Libertarian Party moved over to what Juan calls a new Trump type of
Well, Reince actually said that. If you see his quote, it said it was Donald Trump that was able to bring this party and this movement together, and Steve and I know that, and we live it every day. Our job is to get the agenda of President Trump. It's not about the individual agendas of those two strategists and top advisors. It's about the president and the movement and making sure that they check the box.
I read something today that I thought really captured it. It said, you know, it used to be that it was the Pat Buchanan populist wing that would get about a third of the vote. And they, you know, especially the young people, all the Paul supporters, they would show up at CPAC. But now, gee whiz, they run the whole dance. I mean, it's their party, baby.
Well, I mean, and also, I think you go back to the idea that it is a big tent. So there's some things that conservatives from, like, the Reagan era will be like, I like that, and I can't really deal with that. But overall, I can be happy and supportive if you are somebody from that old school Victorian age.